Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you so much for joining us for another exciting conversation with another amazing guest. Today's conversation is going to be about the importance of empathy and showing up in our humanity and why doing that allows us to get this human experience just right. All through life, in all facets of life, we just want to accomplish our goals. But we also know for us to accomplish our goals, other people need to show up and make it possible instead of intentionally or unintentionally creating roadblocks. In our most selfish, self-centered moment, we want others to help us, right? And the best way to do that is influence others and invite them into our journey, our mission, our goal, so that they willingly participate. And how do we do that? Instead of focusing on just me and what I want, what if we start thinking about how what I want is going to land for other people? What is in it for others? And taking perspective of what this could mean for others. And from that perspective, taking move towards that centeredness of your task at hand. So that the reality of proven fact that we can each only influence 3 levels from where we are, the minute you take perspective and move towards that centeredness of your own mission, of that own perspective, that own outcome that you're trying to accomplish, all of a sudden you can influence 3 levels to your right, 3 levels to your left, and everybody in that centeredness. You've taken the fact of 3 degrees of influence to 7 degrees of influence by just taking perspective and shifting towards the center. That's why successful organizations, successful individuals, and successful corporations always believe in moving everybody towards the center. And successful leadership happens from the middle. Even in an organization, it's not the CEO who influences everything. It's the middle management because they have 7 degrees of freedom. So leading from the middle, leading from the centeredness in our most selfish moment is the most advantageous for us. And today we're going to talk about how do we get there from empathy and how do we show up in our humanness to make that centeredness possible. And to have this conversation is somebody I just recently met who works for the IRS. Yes, IRS tax season, but who is so much in touch with his own humanity that he really wants to talk about how empathy and humanness has shaped his life and how he is using that to influence his goals, his dreams, and empower others. Scott Delaney, welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks.
Thank you, Dr. Cass. I really appreciate that. That's a great opening. And I think the words that you were talking about in regards to middle management and leading from the middle and leading from the center and empathy, I think they're so powerful and absolutely true to right now. So I really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. So men don't always talk about empathy, and people in IRS don't conjure up the image of empathy for anybody, right? But doesn't mean they're not human. And you come from a unique place with a unique perspective. Talk to us a little bit about what in your life journey got you there and why empathy is so important for you from your humanist perspective.
Well, it's interesting. I think empathy is incredibly important because I think it allows for understanding and it allows for people to understand one another. And that's what my book's about. I mean, my book is about empathy and courage and teamwork, and it's told through a fantasy realm. So it's told through a character called Elfie Askell, who is half fairy and half pixie. And so her parents are different, and her parents have been banished for their love, and they've been outcast because of that and stuff. And because of that, along the way, Elfie has to learn her way and earn her way back into the troop by earning her wings. And she does that by learning courage and empathy and teamwork. And empathy is a huge part of this story. And so, for example, Elfie Askell is the main character. She and her colleagues, her friends, Ryer and Jules. Ryer is a hedgehog and Jules is a flying squirrel. But they go off into the world and they have these adventures and find ways of understanding other people and working together as a team and having courage to overcome obstacles. And that's what it's all about. So the book is really the empathy and empathetic aspects are really super important to me. I grew up in a family where empathy was a gift. I'm very lucky. I have a very strong mother. My wife is incredibly smart and powerful. My mother-in-law is very strong as well. I have a lot of empathy in my family. And it's a gift that I really value. So I really appreciate that, Dr. Cass.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Scott. I love the premise of your story, flying squirrel and a hedgehog, right? And a pixie and a fairy combination. So I'm already imagining what that feels like. But so that's kind of the dream of a little girl's
Mhm.
imagination. What in you gives you that courage and that groundedness to move away from the traditional definition of masculinity? Not necessarily always the right thing, but there's a socially propagated definition.
Mhm.
What allows you to move away and truly embrace who you are and let your imagination just take over and not be guided or governed by the false structures around us?
Oh, that's a great question, Dr. Cass. For me, it really was my family, growing up in my family. Having a strong mother, a mother who was from another country. My mother's from New Zealand, and her family all lives over there, or lives in New Zealand, Australia. But like having a strong mother and having someone who allowed us to be ourselves and be true to who we are, my brothers and I, it was incredibly powerful. And in my family, it was three boys and my parents, and we were a military family. We moved around a lot, and so we became a very tight-knit family. But one thing that my parents, my mother and my father, both of them, really instituted in ourselves is being true to ourselves. And that's a message in the book. The message in the book is, we can be different. Differences, it's okay to be different, but what it is, we may not be perfect, but we're perfect for our purpose. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And I think that comes from a lot of strength inside, but it's also from, growing up in that environment. And then also being able to have that encouraged. I had a strong leader with an IRS. I mean, this isn't an IRS book, but it does involve teamwork and it does involve kind of things about building teams, which are important parts of my leadership journey. But there was a leader who I worked with, Dr. Sheila Wright, who was incredibly powerful. And she saw me, as an empathetic leader. She saw that and encouraged that and breathed life into that and allowed me really to become my true self in that. I also learned empathy from coaching women's rugby. I coached women's rugby in the DC area. I was also a coach on the Mid-Atlantic All-Star team and the U.S. national team. But like for me, it was working with women and having that ability where it wasn't just like an odd thing for me to be empathetic. It was actually encouraged and strength, and it was a powerful tool that allowed me to connect with people and stuff. And so being an empathetic male is definitely different. And I think growing up, that certainly made me feel different and helped me feel, help contribute to this book about being empathetic. But it was so like these leaders in my lives, Dr. Sheila Wright, Tracy Martini, people who have allowed Keith Henley, who's incredibly powerful, but these are leaders in my life who, in my work job, have allowed me to be an empathetic leader. And then also my personal life with my mother, my father, my family, um, my wife, my wife's family, like just allowing me to be myself and having that strength to be myself is probably the best gift that was ever given to me. So honestly, and it's a gift I want to give back to other people. And that's a message in the book is that I want people to be able to be themselves no matter who they are. It doesn't matter if they're different, they're perfect for their purpose. And that's really the message.
Mhm. That is so beautiful to hear, especially coming from a male, a US born and raised Caucasian male. It's not something you get to hear every day. And there is this stereotype of what a Anglo-Saxon Protestant American man is like. And you break every one of those stereotypes, which is a good thing because now it allows everybody to realize no two people are the same. Stereotypes are not real. They come from somewhere but that's not everybody. And as we look at how you are showing up in your job, in your life, in society, and as an author, and you say and you believe that while none of us are perfect, we're perfect for our purpose. How do you see other people taking that message, internalizing it, and then showing up in their purpose while in touch with their humanity? Because if they're not in touch with their humanity, they cannot truly show up in their purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the trick, is to be able to inspire people, and really what it is, it's, I think, being true to their purpose, but I think it's also being true to themselves. And I think that's the message, in helping people be true to themselves. And I think one of the most beautiful stories I have about that is a woman by the name of Joanne Harris, who I worked with at who I worked with at IRS, who now, she and her husband are co-founders of an organization called A Hand Up, which helps the unhoused and helps people get back on their feet. And it's, I mean, it's not, it's, it's such a powerful organization. It's such a powerful way to give back. But when I see people in my life like that, who are empathetic as well and have that kind of gift to give back and that desire to give back, I think that's incredibly powerful. And that's something that I want to do. And that's something that I want to inspire. And that's part of what Alfie Earns Her Wings, Courage, Empathy, and Teamwork is about. Like that, it's about saying it's okay to be empathetic. It's okay to be yourself. Like that's really the message. I mean, this past week I was in, I tutor kids in Arlington. I volunteer with an organization called Affordable Housing Community, Affordable Homes and Communities at AHC in Arlington. And there was this kid, Shanaz, who is, she's from Indonesia. She feels a little bit different and all that stuff. And we were talking about differences and stuff. And then we were talking about my book, and we were talking about just how, like, being perfect for your purpose. And she was, she was limiting that she felt different. And it was so cute because she's like, I'm so different, and I was thinking, because her parents are from a different country, or she's in this new country or anything like that. And she's like, oh, it's because I love K-pop, and it was like, it was so cute, but it was like, it was so true. It is like differences are, whether to anybody they are, differences are so powerful for what they are. And just, this book is meant to help people find that strength, to find their differences and to embrace their differences and find their purpose and find the perfection in that purpose. So that's what this book is really about, and about that empathy as well. So I think that's really the key, is to be able to allow people to find themselves. And it's a very difficult journey to kind of inspire people to do that, but I just want to kind of walk alongside them and help them find that. And this book is just one way of doing that. And I was very blessed with my family. I was very blessed growing up, with my cousins and my whole entire family and stuff. But it just was very blessed in that regard. But book is a way of giving back in that regard a little bit. So.
That is such a brilliant message, couched in this dreamy, fictional, but almost a fairy pixie tale,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
I'm sure different individuals of different ages are going to get different messages from the book,
Hmm.
because ultimately, just like being a admirer of art, you get out of a piece of art what you want to get out of it, right? So what's coming up for me as we are talking is the beauty of why the uniqueness is not only to be celebrated, but the uniqueness is necessary. I remember when we were kids and the girls were arguing about why we should all do the same thing or be the same. The teacher called us and asked all of us to put our hands out. And she said, now look at your hand and see which of the two fingers are the same. And we're like, none. Then she made us fold and make one of the fingers not function and asked us to do things. It doesn't matter which finger you folded, you can't do anything without all five fingers.
Oh, great.
And the message to us was all five fingers look different because they have a different role to play.
Yes.
But if they weren't there and they weren't working together, the hand can't do what the hand was meant to do, right? And so that lesson stayed with me. And that's the lesson I'm hearing you bring out in your book. What got you to a point of celebrating our uniqueness because uniqueness is what is special about us, but that is only a fraction. As humans, fundamentally, we're all the same. We're feeling creatures who happen to think and act.
That's a great question. And I think that's a really powerful question, Dr. Cass, because I think being unique is sometimes a burden and sometimes difficult for people. And so therefore, when you're unique and you're different, and I think all of us are unique and different in different ways and stuff, but like for me, being unique and being different growing up, it was, my parents, my mom was from New Zealand, my dad was from the States. I was born in Korea. I mean, I was born in Germany. I lived in Korea. I lived all over the world. I was an odd kid. I was different because of that. But what was so powerful and just learning, and it was a journey and it was a process over time. One thing that helped me a lot was talking to a therapist by the name of Michael Payne, who is just incredible. He's really helped me, but he helped me accept and understand who I am and accept those parts of me, those parts that I felt were different. And then having a wife, Christine, my wife, is unbelievable. And she doesn't just accept who I am, she embraces who I am. And what I've done is I've surrounded my people as I've kind of come to embrace myself and understand myself. I've surrounded myself with people who embrace myself as well. But I also surround myself with people who are different and stuff and have a different viewpoint and stuff. And that constant, one is the affirmation, the people who are not different like me, but different also, are unique also and stuff. And, having those relationships is an affirmation, but then also going out into the world and exploring and talking to people who are different than me in a variety of different ways, that kind of diversity of thought is so powerful. And I think by being unique and having eventually coming to terms and accepting myself and embracing myself, it's allowed me to surround myself with people who embrace and accept me as well. And then those people who do have a difference of opinion, I view it as an engagement opportunity, as an opportunity to grow and change and become a better human being. And, I think that's what it's all about.
Beautifully said. And that's the very essence of what this program is about, right?
Hmm.
Take perspective and expand our individual thinking. And as we expand the horizons, then we have so much more runway room. And we end up finding different parts of us we never knew existed. So I am so overjoyed to hear you talk about this. What are some of the challenges you have faced in your profession as a male with this perspective? Because it's not easy. It is not easy in a very transactional tax authority environment, being a male, and by having an empathy, you're a sensitive male who's in touch with yourself and who has the courage to actually have place for both their masculinity and femininity, because we all have both sides. Yin and yang is inside of us. What have been some of the challenges and how have you overcome that?
That's a great question, Dr. Cass. It's been interesting. I've been very fortunate in that I've had a leadership team that's really embraced my empathetic leadership style. And it was Dr. Sheila Wright was absolutely critical in that, and Keith Henley as well. And it's been incredibly powerful working with them in that regard. I think one thing, being an empathetic male, I think I've looked at it more as an advantage in that, like in IRS, I work in HR, and which is the whole mission is to help people, and that's an empathetic. In my mind, that's an empathetic tenet, and it's helping people and understanding people. And I think that's something that Tracy DiMartini does incredibly well, is bring that whole message to the whole organization. And it's about helping people, and it's about getting out there and doing the right thing and stuff. I've been very fortunate in that regard. And now I'm no longer in management. I've had a leader who helped me transition out of that and give back in a different way. I'm now doing data, which is a little bit different for me. But I really enjoy it and I really like it. But like I think having that empathetic lens to my learning and my lens to my thing has actually been a strength, and it's been something that I've really found powerful. It helped me a lot with women's rugby when I was coaching rugby, no matter what level I worked at, whether it was with college kids or adults or international team or whatever the case may be. But the empathy, and having that role in leadership and being an empathetic leader, I think it's a really powerful way of connecting with your team, whether it's a sports team or a work team or community or whatever the case may be. But I think having empathy is an powerful way to connect groups of people and understanding. That's the whole thing about it in my mind, is it's all about understanding. And if you understand someone, it's very difficult to hate them. It's very difficult to not want to work with them or not be. And so I think understanding is a really key part of what it's all about. And it really is about just understanding. I think if in your soul, if you make an effort to understand somebody else, you can really have a beautiful connection with somebody, even if you have a difference of opinion, because you can understand where they're coming from. And I think that's a powerful gift to give someone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Scott. I know you shared snippets of your book, The Beautiful Story. Why don't you share with us the title of your book, when it's being released, and what do you want to have people get out of that book?
Sure. So absolutely. So I'm pleased to announce my book, Elfie Earns Her Wings, Elfie Earns Her Wings, Courage, Empathy, and Teamwork. It'll be published on 4/24/24, and I picked that date for a reason. I'm a numbers guy, I'm a math guy. I also love people, but but numbers really speak to me, and 4/24/24 was a really powerful thing. Of course, on my New Zealand relative side, 4/24/24 doesn't make sense because the date comes the day comes first, then the month. But in the American parlance, it's 4/24/24. So and the book is a coming of age story of the rebellious half fairy, half pixie Fixie. So it's a new character, a Fixie. Her name is Elfie Askell, who despite her parents' banishment and her own differences, she demonstrates courage and empathy and teamwork to earn her wings and become a full-fledged member of her troop. So that's definitely what the book is about, and it's about being okay not to be perfect, but being perfect for your purpose. And I would definitely like to thank Rebecca Hall Grider and RHG Media Productions for believing in my work, and they helped me bring my work to life, and it's been absolutely amazing working with them. Melly Rose is an artist who I worked with to design the cover. She did a phenomenal job, and Hannah Lyon of Lion Publishing is the publishing is the editor of Hannah Lyon of Lion Editing is the editor for the group, and she did a fantastic job as well. So I really appreciate that very much.
That is beautiful. So not only are we going to release this episode for people to learn about it, the community is going to be excited to promote your book launch when the time comes. So we are honored that you chose to come here and talk about you, your book, what drives you. And now I am going to open this up for our live audience so that they can ask you questions and we can bring in some live excitement and fun into the conversation.
That sounds great. I love it. That sounds great to me, Dr. Cass.
Wonderful. I don't know how exciting and fun I'll be, but I love this topic. And what's interesting is a big article on Walmart just came out where they are trying to teach their managers compassion. Mm-hmm. And it starts out with a story where one of the head managers, like 20 years ago, the workers are supposed to be setting up some Halloween display. It was 9/11, 2001. They were all standing around watching the television sets on display. And he comes and saying, "Why are you watching television sets? Why aren't you setting things up?" And one of them turned just crying, saying, "My family lives in New York City." And in that moment, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to start paying attention to what is going on outside of my little assignment." Anyway, so my question is, how do you get other people on board? Because you're a numbers guy, and a lot of people in business, they're focused on the bottom line. How do you get them to realize that the human side of business will improve the bottom line, and to get on board with this notion?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's a powerful story about 9/11. When I was when 9/11 happened, I was living in New Zealand, and so had a international viewpoint of the experience and stuff, and that was very different. But I think in terms of your question, it is definitely a challenge. I would definitely say that. I think in federal government, we're very lucky. We have a survey called the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey, which measures engagement in the IRS, in federal government in general. But it's an incredibly powerful tool, and it shows the engagement levels of your teams. And those engagement levels are proven. I mean, they're shown to contribute to productivity. And so having a hard survey like that, talking about engagement, is a great way to kind of, talk connect the bridge between number people and empathy people and people and connecting that bridge and having that federal employee viewpoint survey a measure of empathy being able to contribute that conversation. But I think the broader scope and the broader discussion of having that of having an empathetic leader and encouraging that and having that kind of connecting that and showing the value of that, it's different. I'll give you an example on my team. I worked with some incredibly powerful women on my team. I was very fortunate in that regard. But what we did was we always made sure that the team was paramount above all, and everything that we did was paramount about team and stuff. But like people were willing to work extra hours because of the team. People were willing to do extra attention to detail because of the power of team. People were willing to do extra work because of the power of the team. And that connection to team, that empathetic connection, that environment is really what's so powerful. The team that I was on in IRS is called Policy and Audits, and it was probably the best team that I've ever worked alongside. And Dr. Sheila Wright was my executive for a bit, and then Keith Henley after that. And having that opportunity, they both encouraged me and empowered me to really be an empathetic leader and be myself. And that kind of environment, we had a small team, but we were able to do so much. We only had so many people on the team, but we were able to do so many things because of all the extra and the commitment of the team. Our FIFA scores were through the roof. We had done so many things, and they were through the roof, and the team was so powerful. And that was a one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is in women's rugby. When I was coaching women's rugby, being an empathetic leader and being encouraging instead of numbers. Like it was interesting because I created a system of statistics that had never been done before in rugby. So I combined numbers, but then I was also team building and building team and building engagement, and that was incredibly powerful as well. And that I think the combination of numbers and engagement or empathy, I think the combination of those two, blending those two together, really make for a powerful team, because then you have the logic of the numbers, but then you have the feeling and the power of the people. And I think that combination makes a tremendous combination.
As I'm listening to this exchange, what's coming up for me as a international finance executive and finance strategist, I am going into organizations and countries to bring about economic development, right? The results are going to be measured in numbers, but that's the output. If I want a cake baked, I have to start with my ingredients. I can't focus on the cake and not put the ingredients in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I am a foodie. So I take that same approach to the world we live in. Martians are not coming. People always say, Dr. Cass, you're way too kind, way too nice to be a finance executive. And I'm like, okay, let's back up here. I'm a human being who happens to be a finance executive. I'm not a finance executive who happens to be human. The latter can't happen until Martians come here, right? So if we can approach every aspect in terms of all input are human, our entire stakeholder community is human. And when we create space and create viability for that humanness to come together and work together and collaborate and co-create, then the synergies are created for the output to be larger than its individual parts. And that's where the real magic happens. Every time we focus on the numbers, we're putting the cart before the horse. We can't beat up the horse for the cart to move fast, because the horse is going to fall down and then the cart is going to break. And as long as we keep that in perspective, life is a beautiful thing. And relationships are going to be magical to make the experience beautiful. So what closing thoughts do you have, Scott, as we think of bringing this to a close? And I want you to think about the uniqueness, the empathy, the fixie, right? Because we get to create our life the way we want. It doesn't have to be somebody else's definition. Just like the character in your book, it's half fairy, half pixie, and she's a fixie.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And I think the closing thought is the one that I started with, is that, we may be different. We may not be perfect, but we're perfect for our purpose.
Thank you so much, Scott. I am super excited for you. I'm so glad our paths crossed. We, as a Goldilocks community, wish you the very best in your book launch. And for our audience out there, you heard Scott talk repeatedly about the importance of empathy, the importance of compassion, the importance of embracing your own uniqueness. And think about it. You have to have empathy and compassion for yourself so that you embrace your true self and you give yourself acceptance for being uniquely you. Even before anybody else can get a glimpse of who you are, you need to truly fall in love with the real you. You need to accept you. And if it doesn't fit the mold the world has set up in boxes, give it a new name.